Okay, we're on.
We're on. Right. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Mayoral Civic, Ceremonial and Events Committee. I'm taking the chair just for the first item, which is to elect the chair and deputy chair of this committee for the mayoral year 2020 to 2021. Do I have any nominations for chair? Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. Could I nominate Councillor Kate Rolfe, please, to be chair of the committee for this following year?
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cleeve, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have any other nominations? No, in that case, if you just have a show of hands, that we're just to confirm that we're all happy. And yeah, okay, in that case, I thank you, and I appoint Kate Rolfe. Councillor Kate Rolfe is appointed chair for the coming year, and I'll hand over to Kate for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Again, on item 1 of the agenda, we need to appoint a deputy chairman. Do I have any nominations for deputy chair? I would like to nominate Councillor Victoria Alcock. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Mackenzie, thank you very much. Any other nominations for deputy chair? All those in favour, show of hands. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, well, let's, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming here. And we're still waiting for Councillor Warren Howes, but I'm sure she'll be with us as soon as possible. Lisa, am I now joint hosting?
You are, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do I have any apologies for absence?
No apologies have been received, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest of items on the agenda. Do I have any declarations of interest? Councillor Alcock.
Just for clarification, item 8.3 concerning the Christmas lights switch on, I do sit on the Christmas lights committee.
In which case I need to declare that interest as well, because I believe I sit on the Christmas lights committee now. I think, yes, I do. Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda to receive written requests for dispensation for disclosable pecuniary interests, if any. I don't think there are any. 5 to grant any requests of dispensation as appropriate, and there aren't any. Item 6, public participation. Civic officer, do we have anybody in the public gallery?
No, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Item 7, to approve the draft open minutes of the meeting of the Mayoral Civic, Ceremonial and Events Committee held on the 17th of March, if any of us can remember that far back. Any comments on those minutes? I believe Councillor Warren Howes is, here she is. I'll just wait for her to appear. Good evening, Councillor Warren Howes.
Hello, sorry I'm
Good
late.
evening. It's not a problem, don't worry. So can I have approval of the draft open minutes of the meeting? Councillor Cleeve, you propose approval, and second approval, Councillor Bradley. Thank you. All those in favour of those minutes? Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so item 8 is the Town Clerk's open report, and item 8.1 is the review of the new terms of reference of the Community Services and Heritage and Events Committee. I propose to start with the Heritage and Events Committee, and having gone through this with the Civic officer, I propose that we go through this item by item by item as we go through it. And the first thing I wish to say is, are we happy with the name of Heritage and Events Committee? Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. No, in a word, I think we are actually more than that as a committee. The heritage side of it is always there. In my opinion, and opinion of others that I have spoken to regarding this, one of the things that the Stratford Town Council prides itself on, along with many other things, is our mayoral history, which of course includes John Shakespeare all the way back to 1559 when he was original bailiff of the borough. I would like to propose that the name for this committee itself is actual mayoral and events. The mayoralty is very, very important to people in Stratford-upon-Avon, and I believe it needs to be kept in there as what we do.
So you are saying, Councillor Alcock, that you'd like to call it mayoralty and events.
Mayoral and events.
Mayoral.
I would like the mayoral to be kept in this committee as it has been for decades. But yes, that's what I would like to see.
Councillor Fradgley.
Can I just ask actually how the community services fits into this? Because if we just do mayoral and heritage, why is there the reference there to community? What community services are we overseeing that should actually be there? Because community services seem quite important to me as well.
Yes, I know. And the community services is a separate committee on its own. And we need to go through them both, and then perhaps at the end come to a conclusion about how each one fits with each other, because there's a lot of overlap here. I would like to discuss bringing in the word civic into the title of this.
Civic, heritage and events.
I would like to propose civic, heritage and events, but I'm open to discussion on this one. Anybody would like to make comments? Councillor Alcock, I know you're quite keen on mayoral, but would you accept civic as an alternative? Because it encompasses, in my mind, a little bit more.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree with you there, Madam Chairman. Yes, I would.
So, and can I ask? I mean, we really need to discuss this, because I mean, this will go to full council for ratification. Councillor Cleave.
Yeah, I like the term civic in there. I think heritage is important because the position of the mayor is extremely important to Stratford, but it is the whole of the town councillors. So heritage, I think, is just as important. But so civic and heritage and events, I think that basically explains everything's in the tin. I do like the term. Yeah, it's also less of a mouthful. Civic's a short word. So civic, heritage and events sounds like a good name. I would be very pleased with that.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to comment?
I don't have a strong view. It's my mayoral, civic. I think we need to get away from where we were before, because it was a bit of a mouthful. But actually, civic, heritage and events is fine with me. That's
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Councillor Cleave. Thank you. That's as you say, it's what it says. It does what it says on the tin, and it's short and not too wordy.
Okay. Councillor Alcock, would you like to change your proposal?
Yes. Can I propose the name for this newly terms of reference? Oh God, no, I can't. Can I please propose that the title for this committee will be Civic, Heritage and Events?
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that proposal?
Councillor Cleave.
Cleave, thank you. All those in favour, please show of hands. Thank you very much. I think that's unanimous, isn't it, Charles?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
I have to say, this is the easy bit now. the complicated bit, I think we literally have you all got your terms of reference, the draft terms of reference in front of you? Yeah, good. So I think we start with, I got very confused when I discussed this with Charles with all this, you know, red, green, blue, black. And we decided in the end, we just literally go through it word by word. So sustainability, I think it goes across every committee. Does anyone have any comments on that?
It's got to be across every committee.
Absolutely. Equality, again, across every committee, and advisory powers. Yes, would you agree?
Can I just check? This isn't a but it is a decision-making committee.
This is a decision-making committee.
Yeah.
We will have a budget to make a decision.
Yeah.
And if it is approved, we will be able to resolve things, and that will be it, rather than recommend, which is all we're given powers to do.
I was just wondering about the word advisory. That was all fitting in there.
Well, we have to advise the Finance and Audit Committee
Yeah.
of our budget, and about equipment and.
Yeah. Okay.
Fine.
I mean, remember that all these alterations that we are making, Charles will then, I assume, type it all out, and it will go to full council for ratification, for agreement. Is that right, Charles?
Well, it will certainly go to the meeting. What I would suggest, Madam Chairman, is perhaps let's go through everything, but then the proposal and seconded right at the end is that the name of the committee will become, and that under you know, let's list it all.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So I think let's now go to delegated powers within the budget.
Madam Chairman, Councillor Cleave has got her hand
up.
up.
I beg your pardon, Councillor Cleave, sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to, we skipped ahead quickly. On number 2 with equality, can we make sure that that is equality, diversity and inclusion? We could just have equality in the title, but just can we within it mention equality, diversity and inclusion? Because they're all very different, but very important, working together.
I'm more than happy with that. Is that okay with everyone? Anyone against that? So Civic Officer, will you be able to put that in?
I've done so, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. So the delegated powers within the budget to receive and consider all the following matters using executive powers once general policy and expenditure has been approved by the council. So all matters relating to the civic insignia and ceremonial, and all that listed there, obviously you agree with. Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It says all matters relating to, and then the list. Can we have it added onto there, please, Madam Chairman, with agreement to the committee, and any one-off special occasions that arise? Hence, we did the parade for thank you for James Road during the Olympics. Sometimes we have to react very, very quickly.
Absolutely, I would
like that added in, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, isn't that picked up under item 4.3?
Probably is when we get there.
The planning, management and operation of any unforeseen event or festival solely or partly organised by the town council. So 4.2 is everything. There's the standing. These are the ones that we know we're going to do, and they're in the.
Yes, that's true. It is true.
And 4.3 is anything new.
Did we need it separate?
The only reason it's separate is if you look under the officers responsible, it includes Sarah, the town clerk, added on rather than just Charles and Lisa. But I'm open to what you would consider appropriate. Would you like to keep it separate, or would you like it back in the long list?
Don't think it makes
Please.
any difference.
I don't think it makes any difference.
I suggest we keep it separate, but
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
That's absolutely fine. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Thank you. So moving on, undertake a specific budget review for every event by September each year in order to determine the committee's budget requirement. Yeah. Undertake a specific risk assessment management review of each event or festival before the event takes place.
Which we do.
We
We can do anyway.
To keep under review and monitor the level of feedback in relation to the council's civic, ceremonial and events activity. We need to change the title of that because it's now, we think it's going to be Civic Heritage and Events Committee. 4.7.
It's
Sorry, could I take you back to that, please?
Yes,
Beg your pardon, Madam Chairman.
absolutely, please do.
We've never had that before with any other committee, reviewing and monitoring. I don't quite get what that means, because actually we've never reviewed and monitored any committee or event that we've done. So I was just wondering, how are we going to view? How are we going to monitor? How are we going to get feedback? It seems...
Councillor Fradgley and then Councillor Cleave.
That kind of scrutiny element was actually inside finance, and that's come out of finance now, so it's no longer scrutiny. So my understanding was that this scrutiny element would actually go into each of the committees, and to do that at the end of an event or halfway through, if it's going wrong, you have to sit down and work out and talk through exactly what is happening. So that element is to make sure as you go through anything, you're checking the finances, you're checking the health and safety, you're checking the risk assessment and making sure that you've booked everything. That scrutiny in an event would go through, I would have thought, in that sort of way.
Councillor Cleave.
Yes, I just agree with Councillor Fradgley. I was just going to say, because I know after we did the Christmas Victorian Fair event, we did a debrief afterwards and see what went right and wrong, and essentially I assume that's what we'll do after each event, is what worked well, what didn't work well, how we can improve it. That's what I assumed that particular section meant.
I assumed that particular section meant exactly the same, that we always, on a big event, we have a debrief. Are you happy with that, Councillor Alcock? Thank you. Everybody else is? Oh, Councillor Fradgley.
I think as this is now coming into the committees, we need to make sure as we go through anything that you actually have a review to make sure things are not going haywire. Make sure the budget's not running out and that kind of thing. So I think it's much more of an ongoing as well as a review at the end.
I would agree with that. So is everyone happy with that? So let's move on to 4.7. In association with Stratford-upon-Avon District Council, the operation of the town's markets is undertaken under licence by the external market operator. Now, Charles and I discussed this, and do we think that a representative from this committee should sit on the Markets Forum? Please speak. Anybody wish to speak?
I do, Kate.
Sorry?
I do sit on it.
You do sit on it.
Yeah.
Say, we have a town council representative.
Fine.
And I mean, we're lucky because he happens to sit on this committee as well. But I think it ought to be a town council rep, not just a Mayoral, Civic and Heritage Mayoral. I'll get that one right in the end. Not just this committee, because it needs to be town council, because we don't want them to have to change every single time a committee changes. I think continuity is more important.
Yes, I agree with you, and it is Councillor Taylor that sits on that and reports back to full council. Is that correct? Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, I think I disagree there. I mean, I'm obviously quite happy that Councillor Taylor is our representative and he sits on this committee, but I think it does need somebody from this committee to be our representative. Otherwise, for this committee, when you are discussing the markets, you would need to pull in an extra town councillor into this meeting, and I'm not sure that makes sense to me. I mean, we're fortunate that we've got Councillor Taylor, so there's not an issue, but I think longer term, I think I'd advise that it probably makes sense that the representative on the Markets Forum is from this committee.
Okay, Councillor Curtis.
So then are we saying that markets falls under civic, heritage and events? I'm not quite sure I see
Falls
how
under
they
events.
do.
That's a very, very good question, Councillor Fradgley.
I was just going to agree with the mayor that I think that market representative should sit on this committee, because that's where, if it stays, we're having this discussion at the moment whether it stays here or not, but whatever committee it goes to, that should provide it. However, because that particular councillor would have to answer to this committee, but also to answer to full council. So they would be scrutinised at full council if there are any issues. And as Councillor Taylor does, he reports back to full council on market issues and is questioned then.
Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I suppose then it's a case of he's going to be answering to this committee. He also needs to answer to income and facilities for the town hall, because it's a major part of the income that the town hall gets is from the market. But then that also onto finance, so he's going to have to relate to finance as well. And in fact, with general purposes, with where the markets go, etc., he needs to respond there. I think that the market's been such a big part of what the town council does and what we have in this town. It does need to be that the market representative needs to be for the town council, but what we could request in that position is reports to come through to each committee, because it's answerable to every committee we have, possibly except for HR.
Are you saying, Councillor Alcock, though, that you would want somebody from this committee or Councillor Taylor who would make a representation to all committees and full council?
It would have to be, if we're going to say we want it from this committee, it's going to have to be for all the other committees that it comes under. I think having a town council representative is the right way to go, and we ask for either a report, whether it be verbal or written, to come to this committee. Otherwise, poor Councillor Taylor is going to find himself sitting on every single committee as the market representative, and I do believe he might be a bit busy. So I just think that we just have to ensure that as the town council representative, and I know Councillor Taylor is very good at this, is that we get reports through before our meetings.
Civic officer.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I noticed that Councillor Alcock mentioned general purposes. Well, of course, the thing is about this new committee structure, that if this is adopted by the council, you must forget all that has gone before, because part of our committee is things that were general purposes now are us. We've lost things that have gone somewhere else. So I don't think it's quite as bleak a picture as perhaps you paint, but
because there is the communities committee that we haven't even discussed yet, which is
part of it,
which is part of general purposes and this committee. Councillor Fradgley.
I was just thinking that in fact the market councillor will be reporting back to full council, so they would actually have the opportunity for delivering the report and actually being questioned at that stage, rather than actually going around to each committee. I don't know, would it work like that?
Civic officer.
Councillor Fradgley, I think the idea is that the market person, we are the vehicle. This committee is the vehicle for getting information into the town council. So I think he would put forward a written report which would be collated as part of what we do, and then that would go on to council. That's how I understand it. I may be wrong.
I think
I'd
that's
be
how
happy with
I
that.
understood it as well. Mr. Mayor, do you still feel that we need somebody from this committee? Because then we're going to have to ask somebody from what becomes the Community Services Committee to also represent. So it's going to get quite busy.
Well, no, because the community services is effectively the replacement for general purposes.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that market operations was previously under general purposes, and in Councillor Howe's deliberation of where to put things, he's opted to put it into this committee. So in a way, there's a decision there as to, are we happy that market events should sit with this committee rather than community services?
Correct.
And I suspect that we probably need to make that decision first, and then we decide on, do we think that it's appropriate for a member of this committee to be on the market forum? And I think the answers to that, whichever committee it goes to, I think it should be a member of that committee who goes on the market forum. Fortunately, Councillor Taylor is on both committees and is on market forum, so we haven't got an immediate problem. So in a way, whatever we decide, we're fine for this term. Well, certainly probably for this whole 4-year term of office, but it's probably
Okay, so the decision, what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, is that the decision we need to make is whether it stays with this committee or goes to what, as at the moment, is being community services. Now, do we have a view on that? Councillor Flynn.
I guess because we have events in the title, it is an event. It's more of an event having a market than a community. That's the only thought, but it's still struggling, I think, as Councillor Curtis said, to see how it fits. But if we want to fit it in there, I would say it fits more under the events part of civic heritage events rather than community services. But
okay, Councillor Alcott.
I find it quite difficult to find where it, apart from the event part of it, but the events are just the Stratford Christmas market and that we have on. Is it more of a town hall income? Should it be more under finance? Because actually we don't run the market as per se. We are not the market operator. We are just the facilitator. So we're not looking to run a market. We're not looking to run the events. That's down to the market operator. The reason we have a representative there is because we have financial gain from it. So in that argument, maybe it's finance it needs to answer to, because the only say he'll have, a representative will have, is in the money side of it, not in the arranging of event side, which is what we as a committee would do more.
Okay.
So I'm actually wondering whether actually both civic heritage and events and communities are actually both the wrong committees. It actually needs to be finance, because that's where you'll be involved. You'll be involved in the tender of the market contract, which is where I was involved as being part of finance. So actually, I'm not sure if either of these committees are the correct one.
Mr. Mayor.
Right, sorry, I'm just going to look at my emails for a second, because I've been sent a draft of next week's town council meeting somewhere. I'm sure I have. But the intention was that we would not make, obviously every decision on every committee needs to be ratified by town council. And for the town council meeting next week, we are not in the position to make those decisions because some of the committees haven't met yet. So we will have an interim discussion on where we are and have there any issues being raised. And I think this discussion as to which is the most appropriate committee for market forums to sit under is probably worthwhile taking to town council next week and having the whole council discuss it, because that makes sure we've got the chairs from all the different committees having to say so.
I would agree with that. Councillor Curtis.
Yes, sorry, I didn't want to get too hung up on the semantics. The markets need to go under some committee or other. This could be as appropriate as others. I'm quite happy. I'm not trying to be sort of a smarty pants about this at all. It needs to go somewhere. I can see that it's sitting under this as well as anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Mackenzie.
Turned off. Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think it should go, if it goes somewhere else, I think it should go under the community committee, because if there are any concerns about the way the market is operating, or what the service it's providing, or how it's working within the town, I think that's where it would be dealt with, in the community area. Otherwise it just runs, doesn't it, and we get money from it. The only time we're going to discuss it is if there are issues and concerns about it as far as it works within our community. But it sounds like we're going to discuss it elsewhere anyway.
Right, Councillor Bradley and then Councillor Cleave.
Sorry, I don't want to protract this, but there is the market forum as well, which is the joint body between the district and the town, which actually deals with the minutiae of how the market sort of runs. So that's where all that stuff happens. I think what we're talking about here is that reporting system back to councillors on the town council. So we have an opportunity to raise issues and actually talk about it sort of in a slightly more informal way. But the business of it takes place at the market forum. When I was on it, that's where all that stuff happened.
Councillor Cleave.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The finance makes sense, what Councillor Alcock said. I do understand that, but I was just wondering whether Councillor Taylor could actually, as he does it, what he actually thinks it should, from the role that he does, where he thinks most of it would sit.
Councillor
Well,
Taylor.
Listening to all the comments, I when I first saw the structures of these, I wondered where the markets were going to end up, to be quite, and I think it's a difficult one. I think everybody's put forward some very good points. I think the only synergy I can see towards events is that under the current contract, then LSD have, for example, the market that's going on at the moment would be classified as an event rather than a market, and he has a number of events through the year in that contract. So that's the only thing I see that it could be done. But I think there's been some incredibly valid comments. But personally, I actually think it is probably better suited to this one, or if it was going to go anywhere, then general purposes, or whatever replaces general purposes.
Okay,
but I would prefer it to stay in this one.
Right, Civic Officer, how can you advise us?
Sorry, I was just about to say that presumably when there is a report that needs to come, Councillor Taylor or whoever the representative is would contact me and say, when you have your next meeting, I have a written report about where we are with the markets. That would then join the agenda for this meeting, and then as a result would then go on to town council. Is that right?
That sounds logical to me. Does it sound logical to everyone else? So we've got. So, Mr. Mayor, do you want this to be discussed at full council, or shall we make a decision now about it sitting with this committee now?
We don't have to make a decision tonight, is the quick answer, because any decision on ratifying the structure will not happen until the town council meeting after the 28th. Yeah. It's an agenda item for next week, which is to 12 point wherever we are, to undertake an interim review of council's proposed view. So I think it's a worthy discussion point of, we've discussed it. We did think it might be worthy of going to different committees. We think we're going to keep it in this committee, but let's seek the views of the whole council.
Okay, is that okay with you, Charles, to take that to full council next week? We don't need a proposal as such, do we?
Well, it doesn't have to be mentioned because it will naturally come up, won't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's fine. And we've lost Councillor Alcock. Is she with us?
Clearly not.
Well, she's still
Really?
here. We've lost video.
We've lost video of oh, there you are. Wait, well done. Okay, so moving on to 4.8, down to, in fact, let's discuss the town hall and the hiring of the town hall. I'm going to tell you my viewpoint. I don't think it should be on this committee. I think it should be on the other committee. Discuss, please. Because it always was on general purposes. So, Councillor Curtis.
I completely agree.
Okay. Councillor Alcock.
I agree. I do agree, Madam Chairman. It does need to be on the other committee. It is more of a community event.
And Mr. Mayor, would you had your hand up?
Well, I was going to say whether we should continue, because we do have this subgroup of the town hall income and facilities, and whether we want, that cuts across different committees at the moment, because it's obviously got the staffing issues in it. It's got the income. It's got the financial aspects of doing the town hall. So we're having the refurbishment. So I think I would argue that certainly in the short term, that subgroup has worked really well, and I think I'd like to keep it now, because once you stop that subgroup, you're splitting the responsibilities of that subgroup across different committees.
Okay. So are you saying we remove that from this committee and send it straight to the subgroup?
I don't think we can.
I don't think you can.
No, it needs to sit with a committee, and that committee can appoint a subgroup. But
okay.
I think,
okay, well, that could be left up to that committee, can't it? So do we agree? Oh, Councillor Mackenzie.
I was just going to say, in the other group that Tony was mentioning, Richard Boss is in it, and he had a lot to say and was very, very involved with how we were going to promote the town hall. So I think he would really want to be involved in that. Yeah. And he's not on this committee, is he?
So, Councillor Alcock.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I mean, the thing with working groups and working parties is they can be across all committees. So it doesn't matter if they're not on this committee, they can still be part of the working group. So that would where Councillor Voss could be involved if he wishes. It just means that they need a head committee, a standing committee to answer to, minutes be ratified, etc. And in that, I would like to suggest that it goes on to the communities committee, because they'll be involved in not just the hiring for weddings and how to bring in income. Is we offer the town hall to local communities to use for their charitable events. So to me, there is only one committee it can sit under, and that is communities.
Councillor Fratchley.
I was actually just going to say, if it's a group, a working party type group, then it pulls its members from across the town. So you can actually ensure that you get the skills base that you need in that working group. So
can I ask, please, for a proposal for 4.8 to 4.14 to be moved to the new Communities Committee? It may not be called that, but at the moment, shall we move it from this committee? Can I have a proposal? I mean, all right, I'll put a proposal that those items about the town hall are moved to the Communities Committee. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Curtis. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, so we now have a very interesting one, which is the Cemetery and Tranquility Garden fees. Again, I'm just going to say to you, is that part of this committee or should it be moved somewhere else? What do people think? Mr. Mayor.
Well, cemetery sits under general purposes, now community services. So I think that goes to them.
I would absolutely agree with you. Does everyone, can I have a proposal for that? Mr. Mayor, would you like to make a proposal?
I'm happy to propose that items numbered, where are we, 4.15 and 4.16 go to community services.
And 4.17, yeah?
And 4.1, oops,
yeah?
Yes, 4.17.
Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Cleeve. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, so 4.18 to facilitate the town centre strategic partnership and receive the minutes accordingly. Oversee the oh dear, these are all separate, aren't they? So 4.18 to facilitate the town centre strategic partnership and receive the minutes accordingly. Civic officer, can you kind of enlighten us as to, could you drill down on that a little more? Because I'm not entirely sure I understand what it means.
I have to be honest, Madam Chairman, I don't understand what it means either. Because it's never anything that's come anywhere near.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, that was at the aims and objectives workshop back in March, we agreed that there were a number of projects from the NDP that we were looking to progress, certainly in this mayoral year. And the Town Centre Strategic Partnership, which I think is TC Project 1, was top of that list. And I think that although it's been put on hold because of COVID and everything else, but I think that is still a partnership and an initiative that we would want to continue to promote. I'm not quite sure why it's been put under here, because all the NDP sits with planning, so that the planning one seems to be the logical place for it.
Councillor Fradgley.
I was just agreeing with the mayor. I mean, it had, I think it had one meeting and then it was prorogued because of the situation that we're in. So it didn't get very far.
Councillor Alcock.
I do, but I agree with what the mayor said. I think it needs to go back to planning. And I propose that we send it back to planning.
Okay, Councillor Cleeve.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say the same thing, so I'm happy to second it. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a proposal, Councillor Alcock, and a second to Councillor Cleeve, that 4.18 goes to planning. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous again. 4.19, to oversee the website, social media and newsletter subgroup and approve and adopt its minutes accordingly. Personally, I think this perhaps should come under this committee. Do I have any other comments on this? Councillor Warren-House.
I personally think it should stay under general purposes myself, website and social media. I don't see it sits under here particularly myself, but that's just my personal view.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just a personal view, but on my notes that I made beforehand of what I thought should go where, I wasn't quite sure where the best place was for it, but I did think community services would have been my choice as being the most appropriate. We do have a danger here that we're going to transfer everything and this committee is going to have nothing to do. So.
No, there's plenty down below. We're getting to. Councillor Alcock.
I would say that this is one that does actually belong on this committee. The social media that we do is usually related to what the town council are doing, which is Civic. We have the Mayoral blog, which is also come under Civic. We use the social media, the website, the newsletters, etc., all to promote the events which come under this committee. So actually, it is this committee that I do believe the working party needs to be would need to be the standing committee for the working party.
Okay. Would we like to debate this further, or would you like to make a proposal, Councillor Alcock?
I'd like to propose, please, that website. Sorry, I'm just looking for my note. Is that the website social media panel is brought under the umbrella of the Civic Heritage and Events Committee.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Cleave. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you very much. That is carried. Councillor Warren House, would you like to make a proposal?
I think I don't see it sitting under this group. I think possibly it has to sit between, on any group, I think possibly the community group. But I don't see it sits comfortably, personally, within this group.
Would you like to make a proposal?
I propose that it sits within the community group.
Do I have a seconder for that proposal?
Well, originally I would have seconded it, but I think the vote has been, the majority vote has gone for the other one, so I don't think there's going to be any support for it. So,
okay, okay. Sorry, Councillor Warren House. So that now sits. 4.19 will stay with this committee. 4.20 we kind of covered before, to receive the minutes of market forum and any reports for information from the town council's representatives on the forum. Well, we're going to discuss that on full council, aren't we? As and when. Is that okay, Civic Officer? That's for discussion next week. 4.21 to appoint any necessary external consultants or contractors. All day-to-day working practices using the council's approved suppliers.
Is that finance?
Councillor Fradgley.
Is that not finance? Doesn't that sit more with finance to do with contracts and stuff? Don't know.
Councillor Alcock.
I actually read that in a possible different way, in which case I apologise. I actually read it that when we do things like we need the risk assessments for our events at the town hall, we have the right to call in Richard Lees to come and do it because he's one of our approved contractors. Rather it being a contract that we'd have to be signing, it's more of a case of we'd bring in.
Oh, so yeah.
Yes, I think that's how I read it. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I was going to say my understanding is that this committee, we will have our own budget. We will apply. So spending of our budget on external contractors is within the remit of this committee. We wouldn't need to go into anybody else. So, yeah.
So we're happy for that to stay. We don't need to take a vote. We're happy for that to stay on this committee. Thank you. To approve the nomination of members of the council when appropriate to outside bodies where there is insufficient time or opportunity to refer to council.
That's an interesting one.
It is a very interesting one. How do we want to, when there is insufficient time or opportunity to refer to council? I'm not sure. Councillor Alcock.
I see that if a member of this committee needs to step down for an outside body, example only because I'm not doing it, if I chose to resign as council representative on the Christmas Lights Committee, it could come to this committee first to appoint somebody. It wouldn't need to be voted in by full town council. It could be recommended by this committee to happen. So actually, I think it works because otherwise you could end up waiting weeks. And
could we slightly alter the wording because it is a little bit confusing? Councillor Fradgley.
I find it very confusing because we normally appoint people to outside bodies in full council, so everybody has a chance to put their name forward. This seems to me, I've never come across this slightly esoteric sort of condition. If anybody can actually describe what it might cover, it would be useful. Civic Secretary.
Councillor Cleave.
Thank you.
Yeah, just about to say, it's obviously because it was in the previous mayoral civic ceremony events one, so it was obviously in the terms of reference there, so it's been there. I think it's just what Councillor Alcock said, that it is, if we haven't got time to get to full council, that we can approve somebody within this group. We would probably still send out nominations to everyone, but we have what it's saying, I think, is we have the power to approve it. It's not saying that the person has to come from this group.
No.
But that we have the power. That's how I read it.
Civic officer.
I don't believe it ever was under mayoral civic ceremonial and events, because I've never, in the 10 years I've been associated, I've never known us draw names or put anything forward. I always thought that when this happens, that there was a particular meeting, it was an agenda item, and people at that meeting put their names forward, but I may be wrong.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think the alternative way of looking at this is that what we're saying is, in normal circumstances, nomination of members will be from the full council. So what happens between full council meetings if there's an immediate need to appoint an additional or a change of nominated member? What's the process? And I'm not sure there is one at the moment, but and so I think this is just trying to say this committee can fill in the interim period, which probably makes sense.
And I assume it's on the other committee as well. So I can't remember. I read it on Monday. I can't remember whether it is, but so are we happy to leave it in for the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got time to. We have time to amend if we wish to. This is only draft. Right. 4.23. Any such matter that from time to time council may remit.
It's 4.23 on the other one.
Yes, I can't see through the black marks, civic officer. 4.23. Any such matter that from time to time council may remit across all committees.
No.
What have you got?
The nomination, where appropriate, of members to the council, of the council, to outside bodies where there is insufficient time or opportunity to refer to council.
I don't have that on my. Does anyone else have that?
I have that as 4.22.
Yeah.
And 4.23, any such matter that from time to time council remit, which is just.
We've just done that.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's what I've got on my papers.
So if that's across all committees, do we leave it there across all committees? Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously across all committees, it's the review of its terms of reference, at least annually. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. The review of the protocol and procedures guidance for the Mayor of Stratford-upon-Avon, at least annually.
Yeah.
Yes. Fine. Review of civic ceremonial and procedures, at least annually. Yeah. Thank you.
That's it, really.
That's it. I think everything else is. Do you? Yes, everything else is on every committee. So are we happy with what we have discussed so far? Right. So can we now, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, just a point of clarification, because I was flicking. On the appointment, where are we? The nomination where appropriate of members of the council to outside bodies. I think that should say across all committees.
I agree.
It doesn't say it on this committee's one. But if you look, when we look at community services in the minute,
yes, it should be.
It's item 4.23 on theirs, and it's across all committees. So any committee can effectively make an interim appointment. Yeah.
I would
That
agree
makes
with
sense.
that.
That makes
Everybody
sense to
happy
me.
with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right,
Amendment. Right.
let's move on to communities. Terms of reference. Let's discuss the name, or would you like to go through what is on and then discuss the name?
What's wrong with the name?
Maybe nothing's wrong with the name. Are we happy with the name, councillors? Councillor Cleave.
I was going to say maybe we should discuss everything and then see if community services is the right
I would
term after we've discussed it.
agree with that if everybody's happy with that. Thank you. So obviously sustainability is fine. I've put a question mark against the Community Services Committee will appoint one member from amongst their number to act as the liaison between the committee and the Environmental Strategy Panel, and will provide feedback to the ESP clerk on any environmental issues discussed by the Community Services Committee. Any comments on that, Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, I was going to make a more general comment when we started. Is I don't think that this committee can make decisions on behalf of community services. I mean, it was a shame that it wasn't on the agenda for last week's general purposes, but I think it needs to be discussed by the General Purposes Committee at their next meeting and sign off. I think it's useful to have a discussion as to what we think, and I'm sure Councillor Taylor, as chair of Community Services General Purposes, will take those and have his input. But I don't think we can make decisions. Is that right, Civic Officer?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm more than happy with that because I can move the agenda on speedily. Councillor Cradgley, did you want to?
I think the sustainability across all committees is really that you'll probably find there is a member of the Climate Change Emergency Group. It now has a new name, but a member of that group will be on a committee. In fact, we've got a couple here that they have to make sure that sustainability is part of the discussion. And then that is reported back to the specific committee to make sure that it has an overview and ensures that it is happening across the piece. So it's a mechanism to make sure that conversation is happening across and everybody knows about it. I mean, we have been aware in the past that we've been talking about, I don't know, green energy, and another committee has been talking about green energy, but we haven't known that those conversations have been going on. So it's to try and make sure that we'd all know what conversations were going forward.
Thank
So
you.
really, I mean, we've nominated, the last meeting I was at, we nominated somebody that would be the particular, which is me, the particular person on that committee to check that the conversation was happening, and I would make sure that it goes back to the parent committee of climate change.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, may I ask you a question, please? When is the next meeting of the Community Services Committee?
That's a very good question. I think it's not till the 20th of October, if I remember rightly.
I believe we have a timing issue here, Civic Officer, because well, I was told that both these committees' terms of reference need ratification for the September full council.
We did suggest, though, that we brought that meeting forward. I did try to discuss these terms of reference. Unfortunately, we missed them from the agenda at the last meeting. I did try and bring them in any other business, but most people said if it's not on the agenda, we don't want to discuss it. And then Lisa did suggest that if anyone from the committee had any issues with it, then they were to refer the information back to Charles about any potential, or I think it was you, Charles, or maybe Phil, about potential amendments. But we could always bring the meeting forward. I have no issue with that.
Well, we've already made amendments to your committee, Councillor.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've
Yes, I
given
know,
you
yeah,
the
yeah.
town hall, etc., and they will be, I presume, they will be typed up within that committee report. It's a difficult one because I think we need them ratified. Civic officer, can you advise on that for us, please?
I think the mayor is correct that although the reason that we're discussing community services is simply because there is, if cross-pollination is the right term, under the old committee structure, there are things that rested in particular places, which under the new committee structure have been amalgamated. And obviously some things that used to be under the old general purposes are now in this committee, community services, or indeed under civic, heritage and events. So I think we've been asked to, certainly when I spoke to the town clerk, she said you must consider both together. You must look through the whole package and see what conclusions you reach.
Right, we are, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, I just think, just looking at the terms of reference for the community service one, I don't think there's anything there apart from the town hall maintenance 4.13. I think the others are generally quite happy, should sit within the community services one. The issue are with certain items that were placed under civic, heritage and events that this committee is now trying to kick back to community services. And I think that's fine. I think we were happy that that was the appropriate place for them. But I do think that the General Purposes Committee needs to consider those before the Town Council meeting in September. So I think if we can just bring forward the General Purposes next committee meeting, just to sanity check those decisions, because the rest of the General Purposes might not agree, but I think we are comfortable with what's happened. Yeah.
So, and I would agree with that, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Taylor, are you happy for the civic officer to put together the items we have put onto the communities committee, and obviously for the civic officer and yourself to go through with it and check it, so that it's almost in a ready position for your brought forward meeting?
Yes, yeah,
Fine.
certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are we happy with that? Can we any more comments on this committee? Lovely. Right, well, thank you very much for that. I'm just going to check the time. Does anyone need a comfort break? Everybody happy? Right, let's move on then. So we have done 8.1, 8.2, to determine whether to participate in Heritage Open Days between the 11th and 13th of September, to agree a time frame for setting up a task and finish group for planning Heritage Open Days in 2021. I mean, obviously, we can't do anything for this September. Councillor Fradgley.
I was very much involved years ago with setting up the Heritage Open Day, and it has been spectacularly successful, and then it kind of drifted away and became not so successful. The problem, I mean, not a problem. I've always found that the small businesses around this end of town, the independent businesses, always reported back that on Heritage Open Days, they always did really quite well. And so we've actually really wanted to keep it going because it does actually support a lot of the little businesses. It is a national, I mean, does everybody know about it? Because it's a national issue. You register nationally, and you can then use their logo, and you can make it as complex or as simple as you like. In times gone past, we've actually had about 12 different historic venues open, and we've done a leaflet and a map towards the end, we've actually just opened the town hall. But it's always attracted a lot of people in, visitors and residents. And I think it's quite a good PR job, as long as we don't make it too complicated going forward. But I don't think we can do it this year.
No.
Fingers crossed, if we all agree. I'd love to sort of do it next year.
I think you're absolutely right, Councillor Fradgley, and I was going to suggest it is part of this committee, and that at the next committee meeting for this committee, that we set up a task and finish group to maybe start round about February, March next year. Would you all agree with that? Thank you.
Can we have a proposal, Madam Chairman?
Yeah, can I have a proposal for that, please? Councillor Alcock.
Actually, Councillor Fradgley, did you want to propose?
No, I don't mind. I was just going to propose that we set up a working party for Heritage Open Day, to explore Heritage Open Day to take place in September 2021.
And do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Alcock. All those in favour? Thank you very much.
And that we abandon all thought of doing anything this year.
Absolutely.
Completely, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right, item 3, to determine alternative arrangements for the Christmas lights switch on if required. The Christmas Lights Company has confirmed that the lights display will be installed in time for Thursday the 26th of November, the planned switch on night. Currently, it would not be possible to stage the traditional event, including Santa's Grotto, due to existing restrictions, and members are requested to consider an alternative. The easiest and simplest way to facilitate the event in 2020, in line with regulations, would be to invite the mayor to press the switch at 4:30. This would avoid any opportunity for there to be any kind of public gathering, something currently prohibited. Comments, please. Does anyone want to comment on that? Is your hand up there, Councillor Alcock? Yes, Councillor Alcock.
Yeah, as long as it's my good hand, then it's definitely up to speak. It's very sad, it is, but we currently just do not have a choice. I think that the only thing for us to do is to follow that recommendation that the mayor turns the lights on at 4:30 with no fanfare, so to speak. Maybe there'll be chance to do something when the lights are already on, maybe with the Victorian Christmas market, which I think's 2 weeks after, but we should know more by then. But obviously we cannot plan a huge switch on, because by now we should already have everything signed, seals and dotted. So I think currently, Madam Mayor, we go with no fanfare, but the lights go on, which is what is important.
Absolutely. Any other comments from the committee? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just two things. Councillor Alcock said that we would, in an ordinary world, have been well advanced in our planning. I just wonder if there is a significant change in the government guidelines on social distancing or whatever, and we could hold it. Do we have a cut-off date as to when we could organise? Could we arrange something, a proper event as per normal, or have we missed the boat already?
Sorry, Madam Chairman.
Yes, Civic Officer, yes.
I would have already contacted whatever school that we were going to invite to be the choir. I guess probably there wouldn't have been any problem with King Edward's and their musicians. The compere certainly already had the date in her diary. And the rest we do ourselves anyway, the grotto, so.
And the snow machine.
And well, I hadn't done anything with the snow machine, because obviously once the rug was pulled out from under everyone in March, everything sort of disappeared.
Can we set a cut-off date? Councillor Bradley.
Just wondering if the committee actually, who normally arranges switch on, has a meeting to discuss this, to see if they could come up with something that would be really very, very simple if we were allowed to do it. Like, I don't know, the mayor going on the balcony and the snow machine and Father Christmas. I don't know whether it would be possible that if we did get
Councillor Alcock.
up. However, I've just seen that the infection rate has levelled off and is actually now climbing in the country. So there we go.
Councillor Alcock.
The actual switch on ceremony, I think we keep it as it is, as we said, you know, with just the mayor turning it on. But I don't see why we as a committee can't put plan B in place, as in the building of a grotto. It would have to be carefully socially distance managed, but we have experience with that because I've had to do it for my business. So I know Councillor Taylor, I think you've had to do a lot of work, and Councillor Curtis as well. So we know the measures we would have to put in place in the town hall for children to have an opportunity to see a Father Christmas in a grotto. It's a lot of work.
It's a huge amount of work.
It's a huge amount of work, but if all we're doing is opening a grotto, then the people we need to speak to are Tony Holt. We wouldn't need Dudley for sound. We'd need Richard Leeds for health and safety. But if all of us put the dates in our diary to say from the Thursday and the Friday, we could open it on the Saturday if we are allowed. And that's where it comes down to. But maybe not on the switch on night, because I do believe we'd be irresponsible of us to encourage a lot of people into a small area of the town. But socially distanced measures could be organised possibly for the town hall.
Okay, Councillor Cleve.
Yeah, I agree. To have it on the switch on night, there's no way we could safely socially distance. It just wouldn't work. But if we could run it over a few days, and that includes obviously Santa's availability, and have booked time slots, there is the option of doing it that way if we're able to. But there's no way we could just do it in a day, if you think, or in a couple of hours like we normally would, because we know the numbers that come through the door, and it just wouldn't be possible. But if there is a way of spreading it out, if we're able to do it, and therefore have people arrive at designated times, then there may be more of a chance to do it.
Councillor Curtis.
You're mute.
Sorry, no, I was just deep in thought and rather depressed about the whole business. I'm sorry.
Civic officer.
The other thing we must bear in mind is, of course, that the current measures that are in the town, the barriers and everything, could well still be in place at that time. I think if I went to safety advisory group meeting, which of course are now all organised by the district, with a proposal of any description to do with opening the town hall, where would you put the crowds, I think I'd be laughed out of the room, honestly, because the town hall, very sadly, isn't the most ideal building. To have a one-way system, you have to send people up the stairs, across, down the stairs, and as we discovered last year, it's incredibly difficult to keep it all going.
And also, mate, before I bring the mayor in, I also might add that it's very possible that there might be a wedding booked for that weekend.
There wouldn't be.
There's weddings booked at the town hall throughout November and December. I mean, whether they get cancelled or not, but there are weddings booked. Anyway, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, I think today's decision has got to be that we do something very low key for the switch on. Christmas lights will happen. There will be a switch on of some sort, but it will be really low key. In a way, my question was, in 2 months' time, if everything's relaxed, would we have an opportunity to do something more? So there's a question of, do we just play it by ear? I think I'm not sure how much time and effort you would need, notice you would need to put on a grotto in the. I don't think it's going to happen, but I just think I think it's too early to say we're not going to do it. We say it's going to be low key, but we keep our options open. At least, when's our next meeting? When would be the next meeting of this?
It's on the bottom of the agenda. 15th of September.
I mean, if we deferred any final decision until the 15th of September, would that give you enough time to do something? A month?
We could put something together.
In a month. In which case,
it really depends. It would depend what elements you want. I mean, currently, I understand that the overwhelming feel of the businesses in the town is that they just want the lights to come on. They don't really mind how it happens as long as it does happen. And they're all happy, I believe, to contribute, all those that have already been approached. So,
yeah.
But I could, of course, contact the people who supply the snow machine and dropper, but they would want to get something one way or the other, and keeping them dangling on till the middle of September, I just wonder. But it's entirely obviously your choice.
So, councillors, can I make a proposal that we keep the low key, but on the 15th of September, if we have some different directive from government, that we look to putting something a little bit more special on, something a little bit different, that we can do very quickly.
Yeah.
Would members agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are you happy with that, Mr. Mayor, that we look at it on the 15th?
That's fine. Just going back to what Civic Officer said about he not contacting the school, I'm in touch with Broad Street. They're my school of choice. And when I suggested something like that, them being the choir, they were really enthused to do it. So they would do it at short notice if we needed something. If we could have a choir, they would do it.
Lovely. Because the choir is always done on a rota basis. We choose the choir each year, a different school each year, and it's done on a rota basis, isn't it, Civic Officer?
That's how it has been done, to make sure everybody has the chance to do it. Yeah. But it probably will have come round to Broad Street's turn again.
Yeah.
I think last year was Thomas Jolliffe, and the year before was
Alverton.
So Alverton. So I don't see.
Councillor Curtis.
Yes, sorry, thank you, Chair. Just a query of dates. Did you say that this committee meets again on the 15th of September?
That's what I've got it as, yes.
Because I've got a town council planning that evening in my diary, but one of them is obviously wrong. It's probably me.
No, it's definitely that 15th of September. I've got that in my diary.
Thank you. I will check the planning. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Let's move on to
Madam Chair. Can I just very, very briefly, talking about doing something very, very low key. You could just have a march with the mayor and Father Christmas around the town with the beadle doing an Osea. You could keep it really, really simple with just to do something a little bit different.
Yep.
Just thought I'd throw that in.
A socially distanced mayor.
Socially distanced mayor.
I think that's a lovely idea. But again, that's the idea that we can talk about on the 15th, because we might be able to add to that. So, sorry,
Madam Chairman. So the proposal is that
we do what is on the agenda, and on the 15th of September, we discuss. How do we word it? We discuss
possible enhancements.
Possible enhancements. That's a good one. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So 8.4, the 75th anniversary of VJ Day, Saturday the 15th of August, to update members regarding progress. Would you like me to read it out, or have you all read that?
All read and happy.
All read and happy. Any comments on that? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move on to 8.5, to receive an update regarding the commemorative tree and container and to set an appropriate budget for the 600th anniversary of the Guild Hall. Councillor Fradgley, I believe you've spoken to Gavin Callard, haven't you? And we need to make a decision about the tree. Were you all sent your trees?
Yeah.
Councillor Fradgley, did you want to add to? You
Only
more
that, yeah.
happy than any of us.
I got in touch with Gavin, and obviously the olive tree was a non-starter in that particular position. And he said the best tree to do would be a female holly tree. And he thought that it would actually be pretty good in that place. It would cope with the lack of light and the cold winds quite satisfactorily. And it does have that Christian connection as well. Well, pagan connection turned Christian. So it would actually work.
Councillors, are we all happy with the suggestion of a female holly tree? I mean, I didn't know there was a female and a male version. So my eyes have been opened. Now we need to make a decision on the pot. Charles, would you like to fill us in on pot decisions?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I took advice about the size of the appropriate pot, and the 65 by 65 by 65 is recommended as an appropriate size to plant a tree in. As you saw, I've come up with these faux lead planters, and I sent you all the information about those. I personally think they will stand very nicely, one of those square ones with the chapel, because it has obviously lead downspouts and it won't look out of place, but it will be sufficiently heavy to stop any perhaps Saturday evening revelers deciding that it needs relocation down by the river. So I would certainly recommend that this is what we purchase.
Was there a cost to that, Civic Officer?
£174.95, but then you've got to add the VAT.
Okay, and we have the money in the budget for that, don't we?
I believe we do.
Okay, councillors, are you all happy with the tree and the pot? Anybody unhappy? Thank you. That do we have to make a proposal, Civic Officer, or just that?
I think we ought to.
All right.
Madam Chairman, could I just ask Councillor Fradgley a question?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going for the JC Van Tool, or are we going for the Argentea marginata?
I think the answer to that is
Pass.
The one is variegated and one is not. I wonder if the non-variegated would be better where there's less light. The variegated and less light might find itself reverting. So perhaps if we start off with the one that's already...
The JC Van Tool, probably. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So Charles, we have to make a proposal on that, do we, that we have chosen the tree and the pot, or is it for noting to receive an update?
No, I think we need to make the proposal that the committee were happy to go with the recommendation to purchase the pot at such and such a price. And I haven't got a price for the tree because it was a bit difficult when I didn't know which way, obviously, the decision. But would you like me?
So can I just go back on? Can I just go back on that? Because actually, if you read the Argentea magniata, it's a very lovely holly, perfect for brightening up a dark corner. So
How-
perhaps we should go with that rather than just the green one, because it
Okay.
actually says it copes with a dark corner,
Right.
and it will grow to 4 by 3 meters in 20 years.
Lovely.
So we will all be retired by
I
then.
think that's probably the better choice, having just
Okay,
read the
Charles
detail.
put forward, I mean, obviously an officer can't put forward a proposal. Can I have an agreement on the proposal that Charles put forward as a proposer? Councillor Frazier seconded to that. Councillor Warren House. All those in favour? Thank you very much.
So can I just ask, just refresh my memory, is this a gift from us to the Friends of the Guild Chapel? Is that the way it's been promoted?
Well, no, it's a gift from the town council to commemorate the 600th anniversary of the Guild Hall. We had originally hoped that there was going to be a location found within the school complex for it to go, but we were later told no, there wasn't anywhere suitable. So this is the nearest we can get without being, that's the only.
Who will be responsible for its maintenance after the handover?
We will.
Oh, it's town council retaining.
Yeah, I would say it would have to be the town council. We do have the cemetery staff who will be able to look after it, hopefully, and water it as it needs to be watered.
Oh, right, that's it. So, yeah, right. So we're keeping it's still ours. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Presumably there will be a ribbon cutting event for the mayor to attend.
Yeah.
Okay, councillors, moving on. So 8.6, replacing the Civic car with a hybrid electric vehicle. And it's to note the report from Electric Zoo regarding the data generated. I mean, obviously, we won't be replacing the car until a replacement car is needed. And so a decision on getting it now is not important, but do we need, Civic officer, do we need to make a decision on which one we want to go for when we are able to go for it?
I think that would be helpful, Madam Chairman, if it's possible at this point to do that. Okay,
Councillor Taylor, would you like to fill us in on the details of the car?
Certainly. I think what Electric Zoo have done, obviously they carried out some work with the black box that was fitted into the Jaguar. But what they have done here is they've calculated out if we were purchasing a car. So, well, they've given us 3 options. They've looked at a Jaguar X-Type, obviously in comparison to the vehicle we have at the moment. And they've then given us an alternative cost on the Kia e-Niro, which was the car that when we did all the test drives had been selected as the favourable vehicle. But they've also given us a comparison against a Hyundai Kona. So all of the figures that they've tabulated here are based on purchasing a car and its performance over 3 years. I've already asked them to produce a lease figure for us, and I've asked the people who we previously got the lease figures from to give me an updated figure based upon on today's market prices. But I think if we look at that study that they've done, for everyone that was the main goal on this in the first place was to become greener. And if you look at the figures of the 3 years CO2 emissions on the Jaguar, we would have something like 5,208 kilos of CO2 produced in 3 years. By changing it to the e-Niro, it would be 150 kilograms. So I think that is the biggest contribution. When we started this project, it was to improve the environment and not a cost exercise. So I think that's an enormous difference in what we would be. And as we're all aware, I think everybody was very pleased that the town centre during early lockdown, there were less emissions, less fumes. It was a much nicer place to be. I think that to me is the biggest contributing factor out of all of the information they've provided. But I will obviously let you have view of the lease prices as soon as they have them, which hopefully will be this week.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock.
Yes, part of what I was going to say, Councillor Taylor said anyway. I was slightly concerned with the emission side of it, as that was the biggest bonus for me, rather than cost cutting. I also think we need to bear in mind we could always choose a car now. There's absolutely nothing stopping us, and we've got everything in front of us. But Councillor Taylor, I'm sure you won't contradict me here. The car industry moves rather quickly. And I do believe that when we come to actually make this decision, which could be possibly even 2-3 years down the line, when we need a replacement car, this data is going to be obsolete. It's not going to be what we need because of how quickly the cars themselves and the engineering is changing. So we could say, oh, we'll go for this car now, and then come in a few years' time when we're actually looking to replace the current Civic car, it'll be completely different. So
May I ask you a question also, Councillor Taylor, so you can answer Councillor Alcock's and my question, which is if we make a decision, and I suggest we don't make a decision until the 15th of September when we've got the lease figures, how quickly, because things could change very, very quickly, and you might need the car come October, how quickly can we get the car if we make the decision on the 15th of September? So if you'd like to answer, Councillor.
Okay, I'll answer Councillor Alcock's question first. The one thing that's happened during the pandemic period that we've seen ourselves in is the automotive industry never really stopped, and the impetus now for electric vehicles is moving at a far faster rate. So all of those companies now are pushing projects faster, harder to get electric vehicles into the marketplace. In particular, there are people like Unipar, Hyperbat in Coventry, who make electric batteries for Jaguar Land Rover. They're at full production. People like Arrival, who've just moved into Banbury, are going to make electric buses. So there's an enormous impetus. So I actually think that there is always going to be changes in vehicles, but normally model changes take place every 5 years. So what you know, at the moment, if the vehicles that are in design and production will be for 5 years time. So whatever vehicle we choose, it would be 5 years. If we're looking for one now, it would be 5 years really before there's a redesign on that vehicle. And in answer to your question, Kate, is the fact that if we chose a vehicle now, we would only have the option of current models. The Kia e-Niro has the latest model that was in production prior to COVID, has almost an 18-month, 2-year waiting list for it to come into this country. However, the previous model, then Electric Zoo actually have a vehicle there ready to utilise. And I'd already discussed with them initially that maybe if we decided to move towards taking the vehicle very quickly, that we utilised their current model until the new model was introduced, and then we just change we take a lease out for a year or maybe 2 years until the new one comes into place, and then we exchange at the end of the first lease.
Councillor Taylor, how soon would they want to let us have that current model? Because obviously at the moment there is no physical use for a mayoral car at the moment.
Well, they actually, Electric Zoo actually utilise most of their vehicles permanently on short-term leases to people on different projects. So that car will be being utilised currently, even within their own company. So for them, this project, if we did choose to go with them, is very high profile for them. They're working with lots of local authorities, and I actually think they would almost hand that car over straight away if we wanted it.
Councillor Fradgley.
As the market is beginning, as things begin to open up and sections of our economy start to work again, do we have to actually say, yes, we want that car in order to know that we can have it? Because they might be getting other people coming forward now saying, actually, we need a car, we want a car. And if we have to leave it too long, might we then be left high and dry and not be able to get an electric car until the 2 years which you mentioned?
Councillor Taylor.
There were, prior to COVID, I visited the dealership in Redditch for Kia, and I looked on their computer system, and for new vehicles, as I said, there was nothing in the system, even in production. However, they did have a number of vehicles of the old model that were available across the country. However, there were not many. If we want to retain the colour of black, which is what most people had actually said they required, there were very few in that colour, and they may not be available now. As I said, that was several months ago. The one that electric do have is black. But I think if I can, once I can get confirmation from the dealership and another garage that I'd spoken to prior, then I can give you a clearer picture of availability.
Mr. Mayor.
What decision have we made about replacing the Jaguar? I thought that we said that we would only do it when it was cost effective to do so. And whilst it was obviously relatively high performance, but in view of its relatively low mileage and it's still in good condition, I thought we were sticking with it for the time being, but I wasn't quite sure what decision would be made on that.
I thought that was I thought at the last meeting that's exactly what we decided, that we were gonna let that vehicle run to the end of its life technically. However, all I would say is the value of that vehicle is depreciating.
Yeah,
you know, it will be worth considerably less now than it was even at the start of this project. I would say if we keep that vehicle for another year, maybe 2 years, you'll probably be lucky to get £1,000 for it in resale.
So, councillors, we need to make that decision. Sorry, Civic Officer, did you want to say something?
I was only going to very quickly say that presumably if it is not costing us anything, apart from obviously putting the fuel in and the MOT, presumably as long as we resolve that as and when the time comes that we're saying goodbye, that we're then moving on and we will definitely go for electric, isn't that the important thing? If we're not going to reap very much money for it anyway.
Councillor Taylor, did you want to?
Yeah. If the new model of the Kia e-Niro is almost 2 years away from us, in all fairness, we're virtually in that position now, aren't we? Because technically that Jaguar isn't going to last, I would say, the longer we have it, the more issues you're likely to have with it, even on a reduced mileage. So we're almost in a position where we could say, well, let's go electric in 2 years' time, and almost put the plans in place to say, right, we'll choose, whichever vehicle, because you'll have to wait that time for production and delivery.
Yeah. Councillor Cleave.
Yeah, I definitely think we should, before we make any decisions tonight, and I think we've already said that we should be waiting to see what the other finances are, because I think right now the financial side, as important as the green side is, which was our whole reason for doing it in the first place, right now we also would need to be considering the finance. So I wouldn't want to make any decision tonight until we've seen any of the further figures on the leasing side of it.
Can I make a suggestion, councillors, that we come back on the 15th of September and discuss this again once we have the lease figures.
Yeah.
We'll know more about you know, how things are going forward anyway. So do I make a proposal, Civic Officer, or is it a suggestion that we discuss this again when we have further lease figures on the 15th of September?
I would say, Madam Chairman, there isn't any point in making a firm proposal. I shall just say, in the light of varying things, it was agreed that we would add it to the next agenda. I mean, we're not making it, you know, it's not a firm. If we were saying, yes, we're definitely going to make a decision on the 15th of September, then it might be a proposal, but we don't know because we haven't seen the figures. Is that
Thank you.
fair?
Okay. So we'll just, it'll go on the agenda for the 15th of
Yeah.
September.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on, 8.7 Remembrance Sunday, to consider alternative arrangements for a Remembrance Sunday if the traditional commemoration cannot take place due to current social distancing regulations. Charles, do you want to enlighten us, please?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. I've been thinking over the last few weeks, you know, how could we cope with Remembrance Sunday? Clearly, we can't fill the Garden of Remembrance with the 200 people or more that we usually do. And we're fairly lucky in the sense that we have an enclosed garden. So as an alternative, instead of obviously people being invited to come down there, we could certainly do aspects of Remembrance Sunday, laying the wreaths, the last post within the garden, but only allow into the garden a restricted number of people. Because obviously church choirs aren't singing at the moment because there's a degree of spitting goes on. And I take it that that would be the same for the musicians. So even if we just had one bugler right up in the corner, as far away from everybody else as possible, that would be a possibility, or it could be recorded. I mean, none of us would wish it to be any different from normal, but all I was trying to do by putting this on the agenda was to give us a little bit of time to consider, rather than suddenly discover on the 15th of December, we've got to do something, because knowing what a touchy subject Remembrance Sunday is, clearly, if we think this reduced number idea is a good one, we then need to start talking to the Legion and other interested bodies.
Councillor Fradgley.
Actually, I'd quite like to propose that Charles looks into the arrangements for a reduced Remembrance Day and actually bring forward that reduced list of people who would be invited, and actually look at how they could be accommodated in that space. I think we've got not much to say at the moment, except I think it would be great if he could go ahead with it on those terms, but you need to do the work on it to see if it's possible.
Sure.
Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You have to apologise, my video keeps on going off and I don't really know why. I was actually being questioned about this by a veteran just the other day, actually. He was asking what the plan was. And he said actually they've himself at Remembrance Day Sunday has always been very moved by the bugle playing and the 2 minutes silence that follows it. That to a lot of the veterans is the most important part. He said because he doubts he'll make it down there this year because he's just not well enough. He would like to see it filmed, and he would like to see it put out live on Facebook, as we did other things through VE Day as well, which I do think is possible. The bugle, he actually suggested you could still have a bugler and see if we could either borrow or Tony creates one of the long screens. As long as it's a perspex screen they're stood behind, you can have a bugler in the garden. but they do need to be, they do need something in front of them. So basically what he was saying, Mr. Burnstead was saying, was the bugler, the 2-minute silence. But he did also say you don't need as many wreaths as get laid, not at that time. Others can lay wreaths in their own time.
As and when they want.
But exactly, Jenny. But yeah, just keep it to the one for the World War I memorial, World War II memorial that the mayor does. And maybe just then the local battalions, and that's it. It doesn't have to be big, but I do think you need to start looking at it now to move forward with.
I agree.
Something we can always tweak if we find that regulations have lifted in November. We can move things around then.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I agree entirely. We hope for the best and plan for the worst, and actually a reduced ceremony. Personally, I'd be hugely in favour of having a bugler present. I think that makes a difference. Filming it is interesting, but we can do that. We're sure we can find it. My biggest concern is probably we will still have members of the public congregating at the Remembrance Garden. So that will be an issue. So we need to decide how we're going to manage social distancing or put things in place. Not quite sure how we do it. Not sure you can stop people. It's a difficult one.
I think we can manage it inside the gardens. We can certainly manage the social distancing, but can we manage outside on the streets? Do we have the right to? I don't know.
No.
I would say that that's a very difficult thing, because if you start booming through a loudspeaker system, will you please get 2 meters apart? It rather destroys the whole ambience. And we are not asking, you know, if they turn up, they turn up. I mean, we are marking the thing. And I would very strongly recommend that I will work out between now and the next meeting, literally how many people we could have in the garden at a safe distance, and everybody else can stand in quite a big area outside. If we have the compare, as we always do, and that sound system, then everybody hopefully will stay connected in the sense that they will know what's happening when.
Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Chair. Just picking that up, we're not dealing with the crowd who had been into Wetherspoons. I think the sort of people who will be attending the Remembrance
Well, we hope not, anyway.
would have thought be respectful and would almost certainly follow whatever guidelines have been issued. So I think as long as, maybe this is too much to hope, but if the government guidelines are clear and we as a council reiterate what those guidelines are, I don't think there would, maybe I'm just being optimistic, but I don't think there would be too much of a problem with with the type of people who want to attend a Remembrance Day parade anyway. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments? Can we leave this to Charles to come up with his ideas? And it's a moving feast, as the mayor said. And you know, come the 15th of September, everything might have changed. But we plan for what we have in front of us, and Charles will come up with a list of dignitaries, etc. Is that okay, Civic Officer?
Yes, very.
Thank you very much.
We can plan for the basic and then add enhancements to it as and when appropriate.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Item 8, the MOP fair. I think it's a very short piece written to note the information from Stratford District Council regarding the MOP fair. It's not clear whether it will take place. It is clearly it can't take place in the town centre whilst we have all the social distancing measures in place. We don't know what's going to happen. I did ask Charles when we met whether they might want to put it on the rec. I've no idea. We don't know, and until we do know, there's nothing really we can do about it. So again, it's something we have to leave until the 15th of September. Charles, can we organise something? I mean, if again, I'm going to ask the question that the Mayor asked earlier, which is if suddenly everything changes and we're all running around kissing each other and hugging each other, can we put on very quickly a reception? Can we, can we do these things?
I'm sure, Madam Chairman, that everything's possible. On MOP Day, as we are now not the authority who has the overall responsibility for everything, it's the district that have that headache, that our part of it, however important, is just glasses of sherry or a cup of coffee. And I'm quite sure that even late September, if we knew it was going to go ahead, we could certainly invite people to come along and drink a glass of sherry with the Mayor prior to the opening.
Councillors, any further comments on that? No? Lovely. Right. The last item on the agenda is point 9, engagement of the Mayor. Mr. Mayor, would you like to add anything to the summary of your the last few weeks?
Three quick things actually. One is the Guard of Honour that was organised for ex-councillor Tessa Bates. I had Mick Love on the phone to me today to say that Charles had written to him and said how appreciative he was of all the councillors being there, or past councillors. So I think that was a really nice touch, and I thank Mick for organising it. So that's all good. And I said I'd raise that at tonight's meeting because we were just coincidentally meeting. 1st of August, I've got my first joint mayor and mayoress have been invited to something. So it's our first joint engagement. So we're going on Stratford Town Walk is the first one from Tudor World, and next week it's mayor making at Warwick. So actually they're doing something. They're holding it in the church, social distancing. So it'd be interesting to see how it happens. But I'm fingers crossed that the JAG will be brought out of retirement to give me a lift to Warwick. But that's just for me. It's limited numbers, so that's just an event for me. But at least it is one of the events on the social calendar that yeah.
Can I just say, Mr. Mayor, check the battery. We just discovered
I
our
was going to
car
say that.
is completely dead.
Can I answer that? Once a month for the last 3 or 4 months, I have been taking the JAG around South Warwickshire on a little tour, just to sort of make sure that the battery will start and that everything is ticking over well. So have no fear.
Is this your COVID recovery tour, Charles?
Absolutely.
However, may I remind you, Civic Officer, that last year when we lit the bonfire at the rugby club,
yes, Madam,
and there was the town clerk and her husband sitting in the car whilst Michael and I walked down in the pouring rain. When we got back to the car wouldn't start. The battery.
And it had a new battery.
And it was pouring down with rain. But luckily, some wonderful person was just walking past and was able to start it. But yes, it was quite interesting. Quite interesting. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt. You have a third point. No,
that was me 3. So I've got so there was Tessa's funeral. Yeah. First joint engagement and next week. And in the meantime, just please, I'm happy to do anything. So put the word out. Just
fair enough. Right. Well, councillors, unless Councillor Alcock.
I was a bit scared you couldn't see me again then. I was about to jump on and shout. I would be interested to see how they do it at Warwick, through you, Chair, Mr. Mayor, because obviously it's something that could be considered for your own mayor making some point in the future. It's very brave of them to be the first of the chain gang to do it, I think. So yes, I'd be very interested to see that. I do have an engagement for you coming up, Mr. Mayor. It involves looking after 3 children for a week.
All those in favour?
I think next week they're just doing the mayor making ceremony. They're not having anything else. So it's effectively what we would have had as part of which we do virtually. I think I'm going to wait longer. It will be interesting to see what happens, but I just think it's yeah.
Civic officer.
And you are only one of 4 civic heads that have been invited.
Right. Councillors, I think we've come to the end of the meeting. I'm sorry I'm just going to check the time. I said it would be at least 2 hours, and we're just coming up to 2 hours. I think we've all done extremely well. I do make a note of the next meeting, which is the 15th of September. It does say 6:30 on the agenda, but obviously I don't think we'll be. Sorry. I think it'll be remote even in September. Thank you very much, everyone. And have a good evening. What's left of it. Thank you. Thank you, Charles.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. Just 16 more moment. Kevin, you know a lot about cars, and I really, really don't. Would you mind if I dropped you an email about a car?
Of course. Yeah. No problem.
Bye.
Charles, we're still live on YouTube, Charles. Presumably you'll stop that.